Joe, in the movie we watched this week, a bunch of cops get together to drink together. Keanu Reeves and Jeff Daniels, Joe Morton, and others. Do you have any memories of when we lived together and drinking?
Not a lot. We were actually pretty good kids when we lived together. We were also, I think, under 21, so that helped a little bit in it. But we both had a friend, Chad, who lived half a block away. And I remember I went over, I think both you and Cam were out somewhere. So I was alone. And so I went over to Chad's and had a few beers with him. And we watched Fire Walk With Me, Twin Peaks origin movie. And it still stands as the scariest movie I've ever seen. And I remember having to walk home down the alley to our apartment, and it was the scariest thing. And I was a little tipsy, and so I couldn't open the door, and it was dark, and I almost got no sleep that night because I was convinced that there was some horrible creature from the Twin Peaks world in our house. So it's really Chad's fault for getting me a little drunk and then watching a really scary movie.
You've hated anyone named Bob since then?
No, yeah, I can't do it.
And you never spoke to Chad again?
No, I didn't. It's over. Yeah, I'm not friends with anybody named Chad ever again as well. No. Bob or Chad, they're out.
Yeah,
so.
If you're going to cull two names from your life, Chad and Bob, near the top of my list.
Absolutely. So.
And Bob shows up in the movie we watched in the elevator.
That's true.
It all comes back.
All comes back to Bob and Chad. Thanks, Chad.
All right, let's get to the show.
Let's do it.
The game began when someone put the city of Los Angeles to the ultimate test.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
There's a bomb on a bus. Once the bus goes 50 miles an hour, the bomb is armed. If it drops below 50, it blows up. What do you do? What do you do?
Now, he's the only solution.
We just got a ransom demand from your terrorist. Says he's rigged the city bus. Where's Jack? Where do you think?
Pop quiz. You have a hair trigger aimed at your head. What do you do? What do you do?
In 1994, we are weeks past the 30th anniversary of this film, Joe. Jan de Bont, his friends call him Yanni, decided to make a film, his first film that he had directed, called Speed. We are talking about Keanu Reeves, Dennis Hopper, Sandra Bullock, Joe Morton, Jeff Daniels, and a bunch of passengers on a bus, Joe Sky Tucker. Why is Speed a great bad movie?
It's going to be really hard for me to couch this movie as bad.
Wow.
I'm going to be honest with everybody right now. I love this movie.
Well,
I love this movie when I saw it in the theaters in 1994. I remember talking with people after it, and they were making fun of the funny parts and the Keanu Reeves lines and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but I just thought it was such a great action movie. There are so many great things, and it's kind of avoids a lot of the tropes. It does have some tropes, as we'll get into the speed round later on, but it's got some interesting pieces that I noticed when I watched it the first time. It's one of the few action movies with cops in it where everybody is on the same side. Like they're not going rogue, and fighting their lieutenant and, being told to get off the case. Like all the cops are on the same side, working together.
Yeah.
It opens with probably the longest credit shot of a elevator shaft ever. Spectacular.
Sure. The elevator shaft. Yep.
Yeah. Then you have the bomb going off in there, and then instantly flying cop car going over a jump. So you know what you're in for.
Nothing bad there.
No, that's perfect.
No notes.
You have so many great moments within this movie. You have kind of cocky Keanu Reeves at the beginning of it. He's great.
He is great.
You have Dennis Hopper, who's a spectacular bad guy. I would love. All right. Fighting words. I will fight you.
My voice get higher?
Yeah, I'm totally in. I love Dennis Hopper. So I
Yeah,
feel like this
I
is
do too.
a continuation of his character from Apocalypse Now. I almost tried to tie in that character to this movie
Wow.
as the bad guy. So like you can combine the Apocalypse Now verse with the Speediverse.
It's the proper prequel to this movie.
Yeah, exactly. You want a 3-hour epic about Vietnam? I got you. And then you have really awesome action sequences, real explosions. I'm such a sucker for something actually blowing up. Really great stunts, pretty spectacular explosion. Like the end of this when the bus goes into the plane.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most beautiful, like, well, we've got the budget, so why don't we just blow up a plane and a bus? And so those are some of my favorite moments. We'll get into more, but I got to ask Greg Swinehart, why is this a great movie?
Okay, before we get to me, I have some follow-up questions.
Okay, awesome. Bring it on.
People are making fun of Keanu Reeves. They're making fun of the movie. And you were like, I don't see it, guys. I just see greatness in front of me. I see nothing funny.
Yeah, I
And 30 years later, you watch it and you say, I see nothing but
nothing but greatness.
I love it. I love it. Man, this is 2 in a row.
I know. It's great movies. I'm telling you. No, there are some moments we can get into some of the bad parts, which are pretty ridiculous.
I really am surprised by how much I enjoy this movie every time I watch it.
Mm-hmm.
There are elements of surprise because every time it starts, I'm like, oh yeah, this movie starts here. I forgot it's not just in a bus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Keanu Reeves doesn't get on the bus for like 40 minutes in this movie. And then after the bus, there's still quite a bit of movie. And I feel like this is a fairly simple but disjointed movie. And there are reasons why it feels that way, because the studio kind of forced them to not have just a movie on a bus.
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like it's a movie made for me. Like when the car flies from the top of the frame down, it's like, well, there's no way a car has ever actually done that. Like it definitely went over a jump. It's not like over a hill.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're just like showing their hand, it's like you're playing poker with somebody and they're just showing you their cards the whole time. That's what it feels like right at the beginning of this movie. That said, this is probably one of the best Great Bad movies we will ever watch. I mean, this is the reason we're doing it is because it is one of the pinnacles of the last 50 years of cinema.
I agree. I think it's also one of the best Die Hard movies that we have.
Sure.
Obviously, we'll get into Jan de Bont and his credentials. He was the cinematographer on Die Hard and a lot of director of photography and a lot of stuff. This is his first movie.
Yep.
But it is basically 3 different Die Hard in an elevator, Die Hard on a bus, Die Hard on the subway.
100%.
The pieces that you'll struggle with if you're looking for, continuity in it. You have a bus that takes on a massive amount of damage.
Yep.
Making turns that there's no way it could maintain at 50 miles an hour. You kind of have to suspend all disbelief in that.
Yep.
The opening scene is great. It's a really tight scene in the elevator. Just happen to have a crane on the roof that they can add in like you do.
I also have to point out that there has never been an oranger sunset happening inside an elevator than that elevator. The sunset behind Bonnie Bedelia's office in Die Hard is inside that elevator for no reason.
I watched this with Jillian and she's like, this is like the color filter you talk about with a third world country. So apparently this elevator's in Mexico City.
Yes.
They want us to know.
It's a deleted scene from Traffic.
Yeah. There's lots of those little things in it. The bus jumps a 50-foot gap in the freeway
in a way that makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, but you're just in on it. Like what I love about the script is one thing after another keeps happening. And so they just keep upping the ante of like, oh, of course he's got to, hit the gas tank at some point so that they add time to the challenge and all of that. And so they just kind of amp it up. There's a shooter-like moment with the snipers where Dennis Hopper's looking at the snipers where they're dropping the money and all of them are very well seen. And so, I don't know that I can go all the way to great,
Okay.
but as a great movie, but it is
Yeah.
a really great bad movie.
It's one of the greatest bad movies of our lifetime. Let's talk about where this movie came from. It's known as a Die Hard in a Bus. But really, the guy who wrote it, Graham Yost, he was thinking of 1985's Runaway Train. Have you ever seen the movie Runaway Train?
I feel like I have, but I don't remember it.
It has John Voight and Eric Roberts and Rebecca De Mornay. It's from 1985. You probably know that Andrei Konchalovsky directed it because
obviously.
you're a big Tango and Cash fan.
Right.
So, and we will get to Tango and Cash. And I kind of feel like we should get to Runaway Train because I feel like this is a runaway train in a bus with some shades of Die Hard is what happened. I'm so curious to go back to this movie. People love Runaway Train. It's like a real highlight. Both John Voight and Eric Roberts, I think, were nominated for Oscars for acting in the movie. So I think we need to get to Runaway Train.
I do think this script is pretty tight as well.
Yeah.
He does a good job. He kind of does. There's some trope stuff in it, but honestly, it's pretty funny. They're like, there's some, giving the cops giving each other a hard time, even in the elevator. So there's some funny moments where they kind of add some characters into it.
Yep.
Honestly, Sandra Bullock is amazing in this movie.
Oh my gosh.
I think she is spectacular. I am 100% in the tank for Keanu Reeves.
Yep.
I think the first movie I saw him in was probably Parenthood and then Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yep.
I'm never going to claim that he's a great actor, but I love him and, have watched almost all of his movies. So I'm just a fan of him. And then as he's, the more and more stuff that comes out about just like what a good person he is, it just makes it even more justified in my mind. He never ruins a movie. I've watched some movies with actors and it's like, you ruined this movie. He's never done that. He's never going to win an Academy Award for Best Actor.
Yeah.
But I think he's better than he's given credit for at a lot of times. And so, him and Sandra Bullock together, I think are awesome.
Really awesome. Incredible.
Yeah.
To be honest. Catherine Bigelow had to fight 3 years earlier, tooth and nail, to make him the star of Point Break. This is 3 years later, and the studio was fine with Keanu Reeves, but Keanu Reeves didn't want to do it. He's like, I don't want to make another action movie. Jan de Bont got him in it by saying, we'll let you do as many stunts as you want.
Awesome.
And so he did a ton of his stunts. Something like 90% of the stunts are him.
I can see that. That's pretty fun.
So he doesn't ruin movies. Does he make movies? Like,
I think so.
Okay. Keanu Reeves is good in bad movies. That's kind of the test.
Yeah. I think he's good in bad movies. And I think as he has aged and the writers know how to work with him, they know kind of where his strengths are. I'm a big John Wick fan. If you listen to this podcast, you know how basically John Wick comes up whenever, but he has hardly any lines and like he's not asked to do a lot.
Yep.
So, and it's kind of the same in The Matrix. I think so. I think that they know how to use him and what he's good at and the physicality that he brings. And he's got that kind of good guy quality that you want. You kind of want to root for him and you like him. So the likability factor kind of makes likable. Up for it.
He's got lots of things strapped to him in this movie. He's chewing gum. He's just like us, Yeah.
I have to say, Jillian's favorite part of this movie was how politely he chewed his gum. He never chewed with his mouth open in this movie. So, this is why this is probably the last movie that she will watch of the podcast movies. She'll listen to them, but she was pretty bored, except for that young Keanu Reeves boy chewing his gum was very polite in this movie. So.
The gum wasn't in the screenplay, by the way. Fun fact. Awesome. But get this. Keanu Reeves and Jan de Bont both agreed that the gum chewing was an ingenious way to foreshadow his character's gut feelings. This makes no sense to me. I don't get this at all. Thus exposing his thought process to the audience. This revelation occurred after Keanu casually ad-libbed this into one of the scene takes. Now, ad-libbed because he's fake chewing gum the whole time.
Oh.
That's why his mouth is closed.
Interesting.
He's miming gum chewing.
I take back everything I said about him being a bad actor. He is.
Something I noticed quite a bit in this movie, though, is there are a lot of times where Keanu Reeves responded with something nonverbal. And so you have to think he was probably taking a lot of lines out of the script and trying to say it with an action rather than a line. And sometimes it's like, that's a weird thing to do instead of saying a word. Like there's a moment where Jeff Daniels says, maybe we should check out the freight elevator or something. And he just points at him and then walks away. And it's like, that's not a thing people do.
Yeah.
So he's probably taking quite a bit out of the script. Speaking of the script, got to talk about the script for a second.
Yeah, let's do it.
The script that was written by Graham Yost was actually an ensemble piece where throughout the movie, we got to know all the characters in the bus more. All of them had like backstories. A lot of them, we saw them get on the bus and meet like their significant other that like kissed them goodbye before they got on the bus. And then everybody on the bus had like a special skill. And when you put all of those skills together, that's how they beat the bad guy.
Okay. I can see that. I can see that as a movie.
So 2 big things happened to this script. The first thing is they totally took out the first act. Or no, 3 things happened. They totally took out the first act. They basically, while they were filming, gave most of the things that the people in the bus did to either Annie or Jack, to Sandra Bullock or Keanu Reeves. The third thing was all of the dialogue was rewritten by Joss Whedon.
Oh, interesting.
Graham Yost said all of the dialogue is Joss Whedon. He did an incredible job. They didn't give him any credit on the movie because that's how the Writers Guild works. But you need to know that Joss Whedon wrote all of the dialogue for all of the characters in this movie.
That makes sense. I can see it. I mean, that's got that pep to it. And that's what, it's like a 90s thing, like ghostwriters didn't get any credit for the work they would do, but they come in. Quentin Tarantino famously did that on a few movies.
Yep. Oh, it happens all the time on every movie, I think. And then there's a pretty crazy arbitration process that happens with the Writers Guild.
Right.
And they really favor people who kind of originated it.
All right. So come up with the idea and then find a ghostwriter is what I'm learning from this.
Yes. And then called Joss Whedon.
Yeah. Okay.
But cutting out the first act really reminded me of John McTiernan, who had directed Die Hard with Jan de Bont as his cinematographer. Jan de Bont had been doing this for almost 30 years before he directed this movie. And he made Die Hard with John McTiernan, and then he made The Hunt for Red October with John McTiernan. And John McTiernan famously has said, you got to just cut to the chase as soon as possible. Like cut out as much of the beginning of the script as you can. And so I feel like Jan de Bont kind of took a chapter from the McTiernan playbook and was just like, all right, let's do it. Let's cut out the entire first act and see what we have.
That's interesting. I can totally see, because really the first act is the action sequence in the elevator.
Yep.
Then there's a little bit that happens between that, Keanu Reeves and Jeff Daniels get a medal, they go out, and then bam, we're into the bus sequence.
Totally.
So I think what makes it for me a great bad movie is the elevator sequence is supposed to be the bad guy, Dennis Hopper's like big moment to get his money. They foil his plans, and then he comes up with a much more elaborate plan on the fly.
Days later.
It's like, okay, somehow he blows up 2 buses, was able to rig a bomb to the speedometer. He's got all kinds of stuff ready for all of it, as if this was the original plan. So that's all the telltale markings of a great bad movie.
Okay, so can you tell me why Dennis Hopper is doing this?
Probably because Christopher Walken passed is my guess.
No, why is his character doing this?
Oh, right. Because he's trying to get back and get money because he put in his time in Atlanta, not Los Angeles, which is a weird, he's getting his money because something went wrong and he's not getting his pension. And that's basically why he's doing this.
Do they explicitly say that? I kind of felt like the movie ended and they never told us what his motivation was, just that he was upset.
Yeah.
Something went wrong and maybe it wasn't important.
Yeah, something went wrong. I know that he blows off part of his hand. They make a big point of showing the prosthesis, and then he's like holding a phone on the opposite side of his face with his good hand just to prove a point around. Yep. I feel like they do go into it. I'm a sucker for Dennis Hopper. I think he's awesome. So
here's my deal.
Give me your deal on Dennis Hopper.
I can't tell if he's good or not. There are definitely times where it's like, wow, he's doing a good job. And then there are other times where we're like, what are we doing here? Is this good or I can't tell if this is good or not.
Fair. That's fair.
You know what I really like about him though? And it doesn't play into, I don't think, his portrayal of the bad guy whose name is Payne, obviously.
Yeah.
when he puts on his cop uniform and he goes up to Sandra Bullock, he has such a boy-like quality to him. Was there ever a Dennis Hopper movie where he was just like a boy-like character, like a really sweet person? Because he seems like such a sweet person to me.
Mm-hmm.
But in this era, he kept playing all these kind of nasty people. And I just was like, oh no, is he the bad guy in this one too?
Maybe in True Romance is probably the closest we get to him being a good character because he's the father of Christian Slater. He gets killed by Christopher Walken.
Right.
So,
man, he was busy in these years.
If you needed a bad guy,
totally
call Dennis Hopper.
I mean, Waterworld.
Yep.
When did Waterworld come out?
Right around this time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that in the theaters too. We'll definitely get to Waterworld.
Oh my God. I can't wait to get to Waterworld.
Because I feel like Kevin Costner is in the conversation of the Keanu Reeves acting school. Like, he never ruins a movie.
Right.
He's never spectacular either. And he's probably at this time one of the biggest stars of the time. He's not really, I don't know if I would call him an action star at that time. He's more like, because he did Waterworld, but it does like Bull Durham and stuff like that too. So, but yeah, I think we'll definitely get to Waterworld. That'll be a fun episode. I'd love to know who else was considered for the role, Dennis Hopper's role.
I don't know anybody for Dennis Hopper, but I can tell you some people who were offered the Keanu Reeves role before it came to him, and some people who were considered or offered for the Sandra Bullock role. Stephen Baldwin.
All right.
Reportedly turned down the role of Jack. William Baldwin.
Reportedly they run out of options.
Yep. Kim Basinger and Halle Berry turned down the role for Annie. This movie was actually written for, I think, Jeff Bridges and Ellen DeGeneres.
What a weird pair.
In the late 80s? Yeah.
Huh.
I think we just have to assume every lead role in every movie ever made was originally turned down by Tom Cruise.
Okay. Yep. Fair.
How many people work for Tom Cruise to read all these scripts?
Yeah.
Johnny Depp reportedly turned down the role of Jack. Richard Grieco.
Awesome.
Turned it down.
For 21 Jump Street fans out there.
Yeah, he said this in an interview and then made fun of himself that he said he didn't like the script, but then said he was really bad at choosing good roles because there was some other script that he liked and it was the worst movie in history.
I think I saw that movie.
Mobsters.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks turned down the lead role.
Wow. I don't know. I can see some of them. Tom Hanks is a hard one for me to see in that role, but
yeah. Alyssa Milano turned down the role for Annie. Parker Posey desperately wanted it, but didn't get it.
Oh, she would have been awesome in it too. I can totally see her. I feel like Parker Posey is the independent films Sandra Bullock.
That's a good way to put it. She's on that bench of just like, she should be in everything.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Agreed.
Bruce Willis was offered the lead role, but declined. Ed Harris was originally going to play Harry, the Jeff Daniels role. Where do you rank this movie in your Jeff Daniels Hall of Fame?
He's a great sidekick in this movie.
Yep.
I like Jeff Daniels a lot, so I like anything he's in. But he plays the classic sidekick role in an action movie that he dies in about halfway through this movie.
Spoilers, geez.
Yeah, sorry. If you haven't seen Speed, Jeff Daniels dies. Also, sign of a great bad movie is they find out where the bad guy lives, and he's a bomber who's already blown up a bus and an elevator. And they don't think that maybe he has sabotaged his house.
They'll never see us coming.
No. So they totally get blown up because they walk into his house and then the bomb goes off. But I think this is up there for him because he doesn't do a lot of these kinds of movies, like action movies.
Right.
He's kind of like an actor, although Dumb and Dumber would kind of prove otherwise.
No, I think that proves your point.
Yeah.
He's just America's uncle. And I'm saying that because he totally reminds me of one of my favorite relatives, my uncle.
That's awesome.
Let's see. Okay, so let's talk about Sandra Bullock.
All right.
We had seen her in Demolition Man.
Yep. She
was really good in that movie. She was punching way above her weight in that movie. She was just so much funnier. And she was like Sylvester Stallone's partner, I want to say, in the future after he was Unfrozen.
Frozen, yeah.
We're definitely getting to Demolition Man after I finish that
100%.
And this was like the next movie we saw her in. And it was kind of like, okay, well, let's get Sandra Bullock in everything. And it's 30 years later and she is in everything.
Yep.
She's still incredible.
Yeah, she's incredible. She's really good in this. This is, I think, her star-making turn, but she has this run. So she goes like Demolition Man, I think Speed, and then there's like The Net and While You Were Sleeping, all within like, and it just like superstar. She's a better actress than you think. She's funny. I think that's the other thing that she has. She's got really great comic timing. And this is really her moment where it's just is as much her movie as Keanu Reeves' movie. I think, without those two kind of having the great chemistry they do, it's kind of a shell of itself. It really needs her to be kind of the counterpoint to him in this movie. And so, I think she's great in this movie, and really the beginnings of her rise to stardom.
Across the board, everyone says she's the coolest. She's a great person to just hang out with. The people who were on this bus were in that bus 14 hours a day for 3 months while they were filming this.
That's crazy.
And Matt Gorley has a podcast called I Was There Too that he did, 10 years ago. And one of the episodes was he interviewed a bunch of people who were in the bus in this movie. And across the board, they were all like, Sandra Bullock is the greatest hangout you'll ever have. So fun. Not at all a diva. Just the greatest person to hang out with. The guy who plays Sam, the driver, he says, I know things about Sandra Bullock that no one else knows because I hung out with her for, I guess he was only in there for 7 weeks because, spoiler alert, he dies or he gets shot. But people who are on the bus, they were like, everybody was cool. There was no bad egg. We all really enjoyed hanging out. And it's, thank goodness, because it was 3 months, 14 hours a day.
That's crazy.
Isn't that nuts? And that's just like an hour of the movie.
Yeah. Same
thing with Keanu Reeves. I think there were like 3 or 5 of the people on the bus who were on this podcast. And they said that Keanu Reeves, a lot of them alluded to, like, I know people talk about Keanu Reeves like he's not cool, but he is really cool. He's just very quiet. So, and he's quite introverted. So he doesn't give you much when you're talking to him. So I think people do think he's a diva, but they're like, no, he's a really sweet guy. And in fact, over by craft service, apparently Keanu Reeves would make like these like a crock pot of brown rice. And he was just like obsessed with making the perfect bowl of brown rice. He had all these seasonings and they would eat it with him. Like they would all just go over to the brown rice, and Keanu Reeves was obsessed with it, which makes me think I should probably eat more brown rice, to be honest.
Probably. If Keanu Reeves is eating brown rice, then we all should be eating brown rice. So
he was in like action star shape in this movie.
Yeah.
He worked out for 2 months to get in that shape, which made me think I should work out for 2 months.
That's it.
That's it. To become Keanu Reeves in Speed.
Yeah.
And maybe some brown rice, let's be honest.
Yeah.
I'll put some seasonings on there. I'm not an animal.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Joe Morton?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Joe Morton we knew from Terminator 2. Joe Morton is incredible in this movie. And he gives us the classic. He's on like a flatbed truck right next to the bus. And he's talking to Keanu Reeves, who's inside the bus.
Normal.
Pretty much a normal volume. 50 miles an hour. Totally hearing each other. And there's even a moment where Joe Morton almost like whispers to him.
Yeah. Great bad movie.
Great bad movie. Amazing. I do have to say that there was that scene as they're kind of going through the traffic. While they're doing that, he's in like a chopper. He's in a helicopter. Kind of absurdly low flying chopper.
Yeah.
And when the chopper lands and he gets in the truck to be next to them on the freeway, a little part of me dies. Just a little sadness. Why are we walking away from the helicopter? You can't go from helicopter to no helicopter. What are we doing here?
Yeah. If Tony Scott's directing this film, there are like 7 helicopters at all times circling this bus.
Speaking of Tony Scott acolytes, Michael Bay desperately wanted to make this movie, but the studio turned him down. But he actively pursued and tried to make this movie.
I'm glad he didn't. I have beef with Michael Bay films.
I know. Should we just air that beef right now? I mean, you've talked about it in the past, but is there anything new you want to share?
I feel like his movies are soulless and uncomfortable for me to watch. He's a great action director,
Mm-hmm.
but there's something about his films that just don't sit well with me. So
Yeah.
we've had to talk about this before, but I think I'm going to have to like watch it with you in the like.
It's hard when you're a person with a soul to watch a Michael Bay movie.
Yeah. I feel like I'm at a better place with it, and I could probably,
Your standards have gone down.
It. Yeah. Yeah.
Your soul standards.
My soul standards are now Michael Bay levels. So,
wow, that is depressing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Something really awesome about Jan de Bont is that whenever there's a special effect going on or some sort of, a special effect, he wants his stars to be in the same shot. So if you think about when Keanu Reeves leaves that coffee shop in the morning, this is like 2 weeks after the elevator shenanigans. And by the way, he knows everybody in the coffee shop.
Mhm.
Like a bus driver drops in and everybody's on a first name basis.
I know. I want to go to that coffee shop. That's what that was what I walked away from.
I want to know somebody who has this kind of experience in their life. I don't think this is, I guess it's a movie.
Yeah.
That cracked me up. But so Keanu Reeves walks out of the coffee shop, says bye to the bus as it's driving by. And then the camera goes around to the other side of Keanu Reeves' car. And then behind him, the bus explodes. That's the kind of thing that he's trying to show action and the actor in the same shot. So that Keanu Reeves later in the movie actually was like strapped underneath the bus. And so they're shooting Keanu Reeves, and then the camera just like goes down to the ground to show how close he is actually to the ground as the bus is moving. It's a really good trick. I think every director should learn from the 2 hit movies that Jan de Bont made and then kind of disappeared forever.
Yeah.
It's a really great trick. So
it reminds me also of Man on Fire too. There's a scene where Denzel Washington is walking away and there's an explosion behind him. I remember seeing an interview with him. And like, what are you thinking in that shot? And he's like, we only get to do this once, so don't mess it up, is basically all he's thinking about. But you get like a real reaction too. I mean, this is the plug for a real explosion. You know, you get a true, honest response. Like, I'm fine with enhancing things with CGI, but
sure,
a CGI explosion and a real explosion they're just different. And I don't
100%.
I can't pull myself away from that. I know that probably terrible for the environment and all that. And yes, I don't want to like ruin the environment through explosions and action movies, but
but I also do want to.
Yeah, but I do. And for art, it's okay.
Yeah. And throw a fan in the background to make it an action movie. Maybe some smoke going through it.
Yep. Oh, done. I'm in.
Great use of fan in the opening scene of this movie. That's what they lead the crane through.
Yep.
And then the crane kind of smashes through the fan. Amazing.
Yeah.
I really loved in the beginning when Keanu Reeves has to pry open the elevator. He uses just like a simple Leatherman, like some pliers.
Yeah. Something that would never open an elevator. He just opens it. Yeah.
Easily opens it. And then he like jams it into the door underneath to make it stay open.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, man, I need to get some pliers. What am I doing in this plierless existence?
My favorite part is like, if you've ever been in an elevator, you can't really hear what's happening in other elevators, but somehow Dennis Hopper can hear everything that's happening in the elevator shaft around him.
This is maybe a ding in Dennis Hopper's performance. He touches his finger to his ear to show us that he's listening to something so many times. And I recognize they're not asking a lot of you, Dennis Hopper, but like, how many times are you gonna touch your ear? Also, how many times is Dennis Hopper going to shoot through the ceiling of something like that elevator when Jeff Daniels and Keanu Reeves are on top?
Yeah, and not hit anything. Great bad shot.
Great bad shots. Somehow he's missing them. But then when they fall into the elevator, he doesn't shoot them because now he's looking at them eye to eye.
There's no reason that they don't shoot him.
Right.
And that he doesn't shoot them. Other than we have another 2 hours of the movie to go through.
So there is one kind of smart line when Keanu Reeves goes down into the elevator. He says, maybe they'd give me $3 million just for you, which kind of explains why he's not going to shoot him now after he's tried to shoot him and putting like, what are they, like 7-inch holes with the shotgun in the top of that elevator.
Dennis Hopper's out of bullets is why he doesn't shoot them in there. Yeah,
That's right.
They could have shot him though. End of movie. And it's just a great short movie about an elevator. So
exactly. Credits roll at the end.
Yeah. Yep.
Throw out the first act and then make the first 5 pages of the second act last 2 hours.
Yep. Done.
How do you feel about the guy who makes fun of Bob in the elevator at the beginning? What, you know, the guys, the people who just closed the business deal that are stuck in the elevator in the beginning?
Mm-hmm.
Guy kind of makes fun of my guy Bob.
Yeah. I felt a little bad for Bob, but
Right.
also doesn't go too far.
It's all set up for when something goes wrong with the elevator. He says, "What button did you push, Bob?"
Yeah, exactly. It's all
Pretty
setting
good.
up that joke, basically. So
It's Joss Whedon stretching is what happened right there. Yeah.
Because of that, the payoff is kind of worth it. I'm okay with it, but it's on the edge for me. Yeah.
It's a notable moment. It's like, what are we doing here? Why are we making fun of Bob?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the name of the actor who's playing Bob, but I'm on board with him. When he's in something, I love that guy.
Yeah,
he's a real that guy.
Yeah, he's a real that guy. He's in a lot of things where you go, oh, I recognize that person. So.
Yep. And honestly, when he pushed the button, thought he did a pretty good job.
Mm-hmm.
After the bus blows up out in front of the coffee shop, Keanu Reeves runs over to it and just doesn't try to save anybody. And nobody tries to get out. We are to understand that these people just immediately died when it exploded.
Yep, I think so.
And kind of a similar thing with the plane at the end. Was there anybody in the plane that the bus crashes into?
That's an important question that I don't think we have the answer to. It just reminded me that moment. I remember in the theater, you're going to get the bus blowing up. Yep. You're at the airport.
Yep.
And then they do the like, oh, here's this. They're pulling this plane.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, oh, sweet. They're going to blow everything up. That's basically, it's just like, well, we got the money and the budget. Might as well do it. That's kind of what I thought with that scene.
That plane cost $80,000 reportedly.
Okay. Worth it. Nailed it.
And it was painted Pacific Courier Freight on its side, which is a fake company that was also on the side of Alan Rickman's crew, their trucks in Die Hard. And it was an inside joke between Jackson Degovia, the production designer, and Jan de Bont.
Interesting.
Yep.
I noticed on the back of the bus too, it's like basically it's all about the money or something. There's something written on the back of the bus.
Yeah, the ad. Yeah.
Yeah. And on both buses that blow up, there's both references to money on both of them.
Really? So, okay. So that's Jackson Degovia just having a laugh.
Yeah. Who's going to notice this? Us.
So wait, this movie does take place in the Die Hard-verse.
I think so.
If Pacific Courier Freight is there.
Yeah. So it's in the universe.
And it came out the year before Die Hard 3, which was also a game.
Yep.
I remember when Die Hard 3 came out, I was like, wait, this is kind of like Speed with the game and we're following the rules and the whatever.
Yeah.
I actually had that feeling quite a bit in the years after this movie came out because Mark Mancina, the guy who did the music, the soundtrack to this movie or the music for this movie, the main themes sound like every Jerry Bruckheimer produced movie for the next 10 to 15 years. And apparently this was kind of the beginning of the end for orchestras and movies because studios realized they could just have someone with a keyboard do everything.
Right.
And so it's that sound is the sound of orchestration dying in Hollywood. Right. But also I love that Speed, kind of created the music brand for so many movies in the next 15 years. It's really incredible. Like I think of like I mean, you could point out any show that Bruckheimer produced, TV show or movie, but like I want to say Pirates of the Caribbean.
Absolutely. I feel like this movie it holds up now in a way that I wasn't expecting. I haven't seen this movie in a really long time.
Yeah.
And so I was super excited to watch it.
Yep.
And to me, it was like, if you made this movie shot for shot today, recast it however, but shot for shot, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that I feel like they're using today in action movies that, that they pulled from. There's not too many cliches either. Like that was the thing. Like there's a lot of movies that we watch. There's lots of tropes or even, Extraction. There's lots of just like action movie tropes.
Yeah.
They kind of go against the grain on some of that. There's some interesting things that they're doing kind of from just a cinematic perspective that I really appreciate about this movie. and really loved, even at the time when I watched it. It's unexpected in ways that I appreciate.
And they find every single way to ratchet up the tension.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that they do start to repeat ideas throughout the movie. Like they didn't finish the freeway, so they have to jump that part of the freeway. And then when he's on the train at the end, they didn't finish the train track.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, now guys, come on.
Yeah. That was a little lazy writing to me.
Yeah. Okay, two things about that. The jumping the freeway was something that Jan de Bont thought about as they were scouting the movie. They actually filmed this on a nearly finished 105 down in LA. And they finished filming on a Friday, and that highway opened on a Monday. And so throughout the movie, they are driving by the construction crews constantly, who were like doing different things to finish up the job. But that also means that every car that you see in this movie in the background is part of the movie set. They're part of the movie crew. And I guess like resetting a shot was just a logistical nightmare.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Driving back. And so if next time you watch it, there are some scenes where there's like nobody outside the window. And it's like, well, let's just film it. And, you know, it'll be kind of out of focus and no one will notice that there's nobody on the road out there.
Yeah. Nobody cares about that anyway.
No. But I love that. You know, like for The Matrix 2, they had to build that highway, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But for this, they just, you know, got to use a highway for a couple months. Kind of amazing. So that the jump wasn't in the script. So maybe the train track at the end was the only instance of they didn't finish the track and then they kind of stole that, you know, to do it again. That was the most expensive shot in the movie, the bus jumping. Should we talk about the bus jump for a second?
Yeah, we should probably talk about that because it's real ridiculous. I know that they actually I remember seeing a making of like when this movie came out, and they actually jump a bus, not like over that, but they just like jump it and film it and then like kind of splice the filming together on that over the gap. But it's pretty silly.
So in the jump, the gap was all digital effects. That's one of the reasons it was so expensive. But they floored the bus for, I think, about a mile to get it up to something like 65 miles an hour. And then it went over that jump. And they did it twice because the first time it landed too cleanly. It just looked too fake because it landed actually really well.
Right.
And so then they did it again to make it a bit more raucous. And then they filmed inside with the people in the bus. And they went over a little jump a couple times to kind of film them actually going over a jump as well. But I don't think you can call this a great movie. And if you have to point at one thing, it's because of the bus jump. Like when it gets to the spot where it has to go over it, it's suddenly the front of the bus just goes up for zero reason. It's kind of like that scene in Mission Impossible 2 where like he goes on the front wheel and turns around and is able to shoot somebody. And it's just like, give me a break. And every time I watch this movie, it's like, what bus would do that? Like the wind hits it and it just kind of like the front just goes straight up.
Yeah, there's like a gust of wind coming underneath the gap, and
it actually exactly like it makes absolutely no sense. I mean, I'm totally here for it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it is so preposterous.
Yeah, exactly. My favorite part actually and I didn't notice this until this time of watching it. I probably see this movie 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
It's when they're on the subway and of course it's not finished. So what are they going to do? And like the emergency brakes aren't working. And so he decides to speed up.
Yeah.
But if he can speed up, he could also slow it down. And I never. So it's like, okay, you just wanted the final scene where they fly through the air and land.
Nobody uses emergency brakes anyways.
Yeah, I know. We got to jump the track. We're going to speed up and jump the track. And all I could think was, wait, why?
The movie's not called Brakes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's really funny. By the way, Richard Schiff was the guy who was driving that train from The West Wing.
Oh,
Toby from The West Wing.
That's awesome.
He and someone else on the bus was in Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World.
Yeah, people on the bus, there's a lot of like that guy. Like there's the person from Ferris Bueller.
Alan Ruck.
Yeah, Alan Ruck, the lady that gets, tries to get off the bus and gets
Helen.
blown up. Yeah.
By the way, we have to call him out. Mac, Joe Morton, is the reason Helen died. Because she's standing by the door and he's like, come on out, come on out.
He should have known better.
Yeah.
Should we get to the back of the box?
Joe, let's imagine that somebody's listening to this that has never seen this movie, and yet they have stuck with us for 18 hours into this episode.
Yeah.
Somebody's walking down the video store. They're trying to figure out if they should rent Speed. They look at the back of the box to read the synopsis. What would the back of the box say for Speed? It's the back of the box.
Pop quiz. You're on a bus that cannot go slower than 50 miles an hour or it explodes. What do you do? What do you do? Strap in and hang tight as a bus rigged with explosives has to navigate rush hour traffic while keeping its speed up. No one is safe. Baby carriages are hit. Bodies fly and heads will roll in this nonstop thrill ride. Can Jack, Keanu Reeves, and Annie, Sandra Bullock, stop the madman at the center of this movie or become another casualty of his maniacal plot?
Amazing. So what is the real back of the box, though? Like, what's Joe's take on this? What's the real back of the box?
Real back of the box. All right. So this movie has it all. Taking the Die Hard in a fill-in-the-blank location, it gives you 3 different cloistered environments. We get a great opening scene in an elevator, the bus that cannot drop below 50 miles an hour, and it ends on a subway. And if you like real explosions, Dennis Hopper being exceptional as the bad guy, although maybe a caveat there. Well, maybe. and Keanu Reeves, and this movie is for you. The premise is beyond ridiculous, but it all works to perfection. This movie is the chef's kiss homage to Die Hard, and we are all better for it.
Absolutely. 6 years afterwards, and we weren't tired of it yet.
I feel like I want to make sure that I'm not overstating this, but this might be the best Die Hard in a fill-in-the-blank movie post the Die Hard-averse.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of a better one. I mean, Under Siege maybe, but Steven Seagal is such an unlikable hero in that it's a little hard. Is this the best Die Hard in a blank?
Okay, well, let me throw some important films that we will definitely be covering by you.
Okay.
Executive Decision.
I'll take Speed, but by this much, not much.
To the listener, it was a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like a centimeter. You went metric on that one.
Yeah.
Passenger 57.
I'll take Speed. Passenger 57 is good, but I will take Executive Decision over Passenger 57 too.
Okay.
Movies we will all for sure get to.
Absolutely.
Sure.
I have one more.
All right.
And it's close. Air Force One.
I haven't seen that movie in so long. I'm giving it to Speed only because of recency bias, because I've seen Speed more recently than Air Force One. But I feel like that's probably, that's going to be tough. Well, we may have to, that'll be one of our next few movies, and then we'll settle this debate.
I have watched it recently. Let's rank these after we've watched it. We will definitely be getting to Air Force One. Something I love about Speed, though, I mean, as you're ranking it against these others, is you don't think it's going to be this good.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have no reason to think that this is going to be a great movie.
Yep.
And then they just milk it for every possible kind of stakes they can add. You know, like we're running out of gas because he was underneath the bus trying to defuse the bomb, and he put his screwdriver into the gas tank, and then they went over some spikes so that the tires are also hilariously slowly falling apart. Just whenever it's convenient for the plot. Okay, well, we have clearly shown that we love this movie. Joe, should we get to what the critics thought of this movie?
Yeah, let's do it.
Rotten Tomatoes score, and I contend that Rotten Tomatoes scores for movies this old can sometimes be a little bit hyperbolic, because there's only 79 reviews in Rotten Tomatoes. But what do you think this movie has in Rotten Tomatoes?
I remember seeing the review of this movie on At the Movies with Siskel and Ebert.
Mm-hmm.
And they love this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to be pretty high.
95%.
Okay.
On Rotten Tomatoes.
That seems really high.
Yep.
Seems high, but also for the time, this is a great movie.
So when you narrow it down to just the top critics, and there's only 22 reviews on here, it's 86%. But we don't do that when we're talking about this. 95 feels quite high to me. I'm going to say it's what, like 25% high?
Yeah, about that. Feels like a 70.
Yeah, it feels like a 70 to me. Audience score.
I mean, I got it land somewhere around 70.
It's a 77.
Okay, that's close to 70. It's in our wheelhouse.
This is a perfect movie for us.
Yeah.
This movie should be called Best Case Scenario for a future podcast, Great Bad Movies. I wanted to read Janet Maslin's review from the New York Times. She says, cleverer action films, and then in parentheses, Die Hard 2 and The Fugitive, for instance. And I just have to point out that critics loved Die Hard 2 this much. The New York Times is saying that was a more clever movie. Clever action films like Die Hard 2 and The Fugitive, for instance, deliver more sardonic intelligence, but this one still gets the job done. So can I ask you, Joe, Die Hard in an airport versus Die Hard in a bus? Where do you rank those? Die Hard 2 versus Speed.
I do love Die Hard 2.
Wow.
I
Shots
feel like
fired right now.
I might have to take Speed over Die Hard 2. Again, I want to put in recency bias.
Sure.
As a caveat, I haven't seen Die Hard 2 in a while.
Yeah.
I think what I remember about Die Hard 2 is the characters kind of outside of John McClane, it's like it's a little bit more harsh dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually something really kind of supportive and nice. Mm-hmm. All the characters are pretty supportive, and that's not Die Hard 2. So I think I give it to Speed. If we're ranking on a curve, both of these movies are spectacular. So if you're watching Speed or Die Hard 2, you've made some really good choices in your life, is all I'm saying.
Totally agree. I'm with you there. And I have also watched Die Hard 2 recently. So
it's the second best Christmas movie ever made. So Absolutely. Of course we're going to get to Die Hard 2.
Roger Ebert, who gives us a 4 out of 4, says, we've seen this done before, but seldom so well or at such a high pitch of energy. Mm-hmm. That's a great review. I really appreciate the negative reviews for this movie. The Washington Post says the plot becomes so overextended as Reeves and Hopper wage their endless public transportation battle. Even the hardest dieharders will consider leaping off way before the final stop. This one kind of resonates with me because I do wonder in the last half hour of this movie, what are we doing? Where is this going?
I'm in the tank for this movie, so I'm like, yes, another scene where we're, yes, please, more of this.
I read that the studio realized that they had something good on their hands when during a test screening, they noticed that people would walk backwards out of the theater if they had to go to the bathroom so that they wouldn't miss as much. The walking backwards was a good sign.
Interesting.
Well, we loved this movie. Critics loved this movie. And guess what? So did Planet Earth, because this movie was made for $30 million. It made $121 million in the US and it made $229 million internationally for a total of $350 million for Speed.
That's, well deserved to me.
Can you even imagine what that number is now after it's been on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, digital? It's been on TNT forever, This movie has made them a lot of money. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention to grind this into, to stop our episode the way I do with trivia before we get to drinking games is that they had 13 different buses that did 13 different things. Whenever the camera was outside of the bus, filming the bus, if you look in kind of like the stairwell, there's someone kind of hidden towards the right side of the bus in the front, actually driving it so that Sandra Bullock is not actually driving it. She's pretend driving it. And when the camera is inside the bus, there is someone sitting on top of the bus driving it from the top.
Awesome.
Yeah. Amazing.
If they made that today, they would probably just put it on a trailer and film all the interior scenes, like
totally
actually driving, but the bus isn't driving.
Yeah.
So
that's a really good point. Joe, we need to post some pictures on our Instagram feed, Great Bad Movies Show, showing the drinking games that are happening out there at Great Bad Movie parties.
Mm-hmm.
People are getting together, hanging out, living their best lives, watching movies that we've had on our show, and they're drinking, and it doesn't have to be alcohol. They're assigning drinking games to each other to drink when certain things happen in the movie.
It's time for drinking games. You don't have to be.
Let's get to it.
You don't have to drink alcohol. You can drink coffee. You can drink
Yeah.
water, juice, whatever floats your boat. I'll start with our stock drinking games. I think some missed opportunities, honestly.
Big time. Yep.
Silent helicopter. Actually, there isn't a silent helicopter. You could drink kind of for this one because there's some conversations that happen within the guise of a helicopter being present in the scene.
Yep.
Not the classic, long kiss goodnight silent helicopter that we love so much. But if you want to,
let me modify this one. I don't think you should drink every time you see a helicopter, but I do think you should drink every time a helicopter is slightly turned to the side and flying sort of sideways, which just looks awesome, which I think is why they're doing it. But also there's like a news camera person there, like on the side filming. So I think that's why they're doing that. But it just looks awesome when there's like a sort of sideways flying helicopter in this movie. And they're also like absurdly low flying helicopters. So whenever there's a slightly sideways turned, absurdly low flying helicopter, take a drink.
Yeah. What we'll call the Tony Scott helicopter effect.
Yes.
There's not a push in and enhance.
No.
I kind of gave this one when two people share a slow motion look in the middle of chaos, because there's some moments where there's some explosions, there's some stuff that happens. So this one's like kind of a gimme just because there weren't a lot of our stock drinking games in this. There wasn't the silent suffering ringing in the ears with explosion. Missed opportunity because there's lots of explosions in this movie.
Could have happened so many times.
Opening credit scene where the title locks in place with a sound. You are drinking a lot at this one. The score is perfect. This is like the classic.
Is there like a whoosh with every name?
Feels like it.
Yeah.
It's like the floors because you're going down. So you have like the whoosh of the floors and then the people and and then you have the title coming in. Oh, so
and speed does make a noise when it flies in.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns and flies at the camera.
Yeah.
I think the whole party is starting with a double drink at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Does it flash back to dialogue 2 minutes ago or longer? No, not really.
No.
Not really crazy CGI, which I really appreciate in this film.
Yep.
Great bad shots. We talked about this. Yes, they're great bad shots.
Mm-hmm.
The streets are not inextricably wet. Another missed opportunity. I feel like they could have had the car jumping over a wet street.
Although they do hit a lot of things with water.
That's true.
But we'll get to that.
Oh, we'll definitely get to that. I feel like we both have that as a drinking game. There is not a give us the room, and there's no reference to Interpol, which are our other stock drinking games. So I will toss it to you because I have a fair amount of drinking games.
I think you probably have more than me, so you should start.
Okay. Well, I have every time a median bucket of water explodes, so a car crashes into like those buckets by the exits and off ramps, which happens.
That's incredible. I have anytime a car flies over the camera.
Oh, that's a good one. I have every time a road or track is not finished, you're taking a drink.
I have anytime the bus rolls under the camera.
Oh, good. Nice. I have every time Sandra Bullock cries. She's so good at like being teary, but delivering her lines. So
anytime somebody hits a baby carriage full of cans.
Mm-hmm. That's like a double right there. It happens once, but you're not expecting it. That was like, the raising the stakes because they hit it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh my God, is there actually a baby in there? And then you find out it's cans and everyone is okay with that. So
that's kind of a two people share a slow motion look in the middle of chaos moment.
Absolutely. I have every time someone falls through something. So there's the elevator scene where there's an explosion and someone kind of falls through the elevator.
Yeah.
They fall through the explosion on the bus. There's multiple times where that happens. So
speaking of the elevator, this is something I forgot to mention. One of my favorite things about this movie is whenever they show an elevator floor and it changes, there's like a tick noise.
Mm-hmm.
This must be the most annoying building on the planet to work in, because every time we hit a new floor, it ticks. So anytime an elevator or clock ticks when a digital number changes, and a tick should not happen when a digital clock does this.
That's awesome. I have every time they show a shot of the speedometer on the bus, you take a drink.
Oh, that's amazing. How did I not think of that? I have every time Dennis Hopper touches his ear.
I have every time Dennis Hopper says pop quiz.
That's better. That's way better than this one. Anytime they show a fan.
Oh no, I like that one. That's like a 90s, early 90s like action movie trope. You love it. I have another one is every time the bus hits a car. So that's like someone,
Whoa.
if you want, that's, and especially early in this film, oh, you're drinking a lot on this one.
That's rough. That's rough. Okay. My last one. This is my last one. I don't have a lot of drinking games this week. Anytime Dennis Hopper shoots through the roof of something.
Shockingly, that's actually a lot in this movie. I have a couple more. I have anytime someone is masticating or chewing something. So you have Keanu Reeves fake chewing his gum.
Mime chewing.
You have Sandra Bullock chewing gum. So the reason she changes seats early in the film.
Which she made up, by the way. She improv'd that.
Awesome. Good for her. And then you have Dennis Hopper eating a sandwich at another point.
Yeah.
And then another one that's for anybody that you want to see drink a lot, whether you want them to be hydrated and they're drinking water, or you want them to be really tipsy. Every time they say bomb, you have to take a drink.
That's incredible.
I'll do our rapid fire tropes. I won't go through all the tropes, but we'll give you a color filter on a third world country for just the elevator that we have. We have kind of the odd couple, unlikely partnership with Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock. You have friend, colleague, or family member, usually a person of color who dies early in the film. This is Jeff Daniels taking one for the team. You have a charismatic, although put a little asterisk by this one if you're Greg, charismatic bad guy.
He's charismatic. I'll give that charismatic.
All right. Explosion on impact in a car crash. Lots of that. Lots of conversations in the middle of a car chase or in the middle of, them, talking. Action movie trope. No women except for the love interest or the mother. So you have, Sandra Bullock really as the love interest. Although that one's a iffy one just because she's got a strong character as well. Duffel bag full of money. We have that.
Oh, yep.
And one of my favorites, especially from this time, you end on a crane or elevator shot as you back away from the scene.
So you might have been watching a great bad movie.
Yeah.
We ticked off a few of those.
Yeah, a few of those. There were more than I thought when I was going through it. But
Joe, I feel like there's some very important questions that we should answer about this movie. You ready for important questions?
Oh, yeah. Bring it on. I am so ready for this. I think it's going to blow your mind.
Okay. I love it. Did this movie hold up then in 1994?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
It held up then. Yeah.
No brainer.
Yeah.
Does it hold up now?
Yeah. I think it holds up just as well, honestly.
Yep. I think it holds up 1% less than it did then. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Pretty good. How hard do they sell the good guy?
They don't really.
No. Nobody talks about how great Jack is. We've been watching all these movies where they like show how good the good guy is, but the selling of the good guy is like someone talks him up because what he's showing us is not sufficient to let us know. Basically, is it a Steven Seagal movie or not? But how hard do they sell the bad guy?
They do sell the bad guy more in this.
A little bit.
Not as much as they have in other films, but they do sell the bad guy a little bit in this, for sure.
There's the classic like rap sheet. Or I guess it's not a rap sheet. Like they find his like employee file or something. And so they talk about what kind of expert he is and amazing selling of the bad guy, even though it's short. Why is there romance in this movie?
The beautiful thing about this movie is there's hardly any romance in it. And I'm going to shout out to my wife, Jillian, who said they threw romance in this movie because they were thought at the end, there's basically like a kiss between Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock and like a,
Yep.
and she's like, oh, maybe women are watching this movie too. So that's why there's romance in this movie is maybe some women are watching it all the way to the end and going, oh, we need some romance to keep them interested in this. So that's why there's romance in this movie.
Let's see. Interesting fact. Sandra Bullock had a mad crush on Keanu Reeves while they were filming this movie. And Keanu Reeves also had a crush on Sandra Bullock while they were making this movie. And they never dated. But in their scenes together, you can tell they kind of have a crush on each other.
Yeah, you can feel it.
It's great.
They have such great chemistry in this. So
they totally do. They made a bunch more movies together, right? They made the
Lake House.
Is there another one?
I feel like there could have been, but
all right. Does this movie deserve a sequel?
It probably does deserve a sequel. Keanu Reeves had the foresight to bow out of the sequel.
Sure.
So, but I feel like there probably could be 4 or 5 sequels to this. Easy. There's only one.
There is only one.
Cruise Control. But
yep.
Which I have not seen, which we will for sure do on this episode or this podcast. Well, so
I question that.
Okay.
To be honest.
It's that bad, huh?
There is almost no greatness to it.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's just a bad movie.
It's just a bad movie. It's a little bit of a soul crushing experience.
Okay.
There's a reason Jan de Bont doesn't make movies anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's mostly Speed 2. We should get to it. We should do it.
Okay.
We can watch a bad movie.
Yeah.
Does this movie deserve a prequel?
No, it doesn't.
No, I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Stop it with the prequels.
Yeah.
How can this movie be fixed? AKA, who should be in the remake?
Okay. I'm going to blow your mind with this. The sequel is Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock are back.
Okay. Solid start.
They break up after the first movie.
Yeah.
He is still a cop. He's about to retire.
Okay.
Jason Patrick is the bad guy, jilted ex-lover from the second movie.
Yes.
And they are locked in self-driving cars being attacked by other self-driving cars. I
love it. So this is the third Speed movie.
Yes.
Which we can all agree should be called Threed. Right?
100% now. Everything.
Okay. I love it. Green lights across the board. Call anybody you want. They're going to be like, absolutely. Threed is self-driving cars. Let's do it.
Yep. How would you fix this movie?
Something that interested me as I was watching this is I just feel like there's not enough bus. If this movie was made today, there would be more bus. So if there's going to be a remake, it would almost exclusively be bus.
Mm-hmm.
Like the beginning of the movie is they're getting on the bus. And the end of the movie is it crashes into a plane and kills hundreds of people. It's like a Boeing 707.
Yeah.
And thank goodness the bus exploded. Sorry about all those people on the plane. But yeah, when they made this movie, the studio said, we're not going to buy this script because it's too much bus. And so then he added on the train and they're like, okay, there's a train at the end. That's fine. Which I just don't understand. But I also think that when I heard that the people on the bus had larger, more fleshed out parts in the original script, I feel like this could be a TV show similar to that show Lost, where each episode begins during the events of Speed, but then flashes back to tell a backstory of each person that's on the bus. So I'm kind of sneaking in a prequel. I'm sneaking in dozens of prequels, probably.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think everybody on the bus, we could get to know more of who they were in the form of flashbacks. And then everything that happens to them in the movie Speed maybe means more. Maybe this is a horrible idea.
I'm in on that. I would watch that because it's like, it's a limited series. So you get a little like elevated a little bit.
Yep.
I can totally see that series. So yeah, I'm in.
But ultimately, I think that this movie's pretty untouchable.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect in its time. The only thing I would do is make it mostly bus. Joe, if this movie was to be an album by a musical artist. What album is this?
I took an album from 1994,
Mm-hmm.
one that you can kind of make fun of, because people often make fun of Keanu Reeves sometimes for his not always perfect acting.
Mm-hmm.
But I took a band that kind of doesn't take themselves too seriously. So I have Smash by The Offspring as the album that this is.
Wow.
From 1994. They're kind of a silly punk band, kind of made fun of a little bit, not taken as seriously, but they've really stood the test of time. Kind of go back and look at some of their work, and they're putting out some good music over time. Don't take themselves too seriously, being kind of silly, but not in they're a punk band, but not in the true punk sense. So that was the album I came up with. I'm dying to know what you came up with.
That's a really great call. They have way more hits than you think.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to think of basically what is the album version of a Die Hard into something that is so much better than it deserves to be, but it is clearly reminiscent of something else. But then at some point you stop thinking about how it's something else and you kind of just enjoy it on its own merits. And so I think this is the first Interpol record.
Oh, okay.
Turn on the Bright Lights, which when it came out in Seattle, the journalists in Seattle were just either like loving it or hating it. I remember The Stranger, the Seattle Weekly, they were just like, either this is great and everyone should listen to it, or I don't understand. This is just Joy Division.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we okay with a band that is just Joy Division?
Yeah.
And then eventually, I don't know, in the next year or two, I feel like most people kind of turned around. They're like, this is actually just a really good record. And I listened to it a couple of weeks ago and I was like, this is just a classic album on its own merits. This is the speed of rock records.
Oh, that's a really good album. I like that. Yeah. Because I had the same thought. The first time I heard that album, I was like, why did you put Joy Division on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or are they just doing an homage to Joy Division, or what is going on here?
Yeah, and they were.
But it's also really good, and I love that album. That's a great choice.
I think Peter Caddis produced that record, or engineered it, and I kind of tracked him for like the next 5-10 years, and there are just so many Peter Caddis recordings that are incredible in the following decade by The National or Frightened Rabbit. Or I think that band Gang of Youths. There's just something really sneaky about the way he engineers records that are just incredible. All right, Joe. So we rate every movie that we watch. Hopefully it's going to be a great bad movie, but sometimes we watch a good bad movie or an okay bad movie, a bad movie, or like worst case, awful bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think we both know what you're going to say right now. How do you rank this movie?
I would love to go great movie, but there's a few too many strings pulling at me. This is a great bad movie. It is spectacular in its ways. It's got a fun cast, lots of explosions and silliness, and just a really solid action movie. So this is a great bad movie. I would love to like push it up, but I can't. What about you, Greg Swinehart? How do you rank this?
Well, I'm right there with you. I think it's a great bad movie. It is probably one of the greatest bad movies.
Agreed.
But there are moments where it's just like, this is so ridiculous. It's like our thesis. When it's bad, it's sometimes even greater, and there are just moments in this movie where that's the case. Something I didn't mention is you alluded to this movie has some funny moments. Joss Whedon wrote some really funny parts to this movie. And this is a really funny movie throughout. Like the guy, when the elevator at the beginning is falling down and then suddenly the emergency brake turns on and it doesn't crash. What does the guy say at the bottom? Like, usually this is where the people die or something like that?
Something like that. Yeah.
And then there's the moment where when Keanu Reeves shoots Jeff Daniels, he shoots the hostage. And he does kind of like a physical take, like, I don't know. I'm just, making this up as I go, There are so many good character-based, funny moments in this movie that adds to the great column, but I do think this is a great bad movie. All right, Joe, we did it.
Nailed it. We had the conversation that needed to be had about speed.
There have been a lot of retrospective pieces about this movie in the last 30 years, but I think this kind of puts the lid on that. I think we're done from here on out. The conversation has happened.
Yeah, nobody else really needs to talk about this movie. I think we've really shut the door on this, and
So, I actually need to get going. I need to go buy some pliers in case I ever need to get into an elevator.
That's good thinking. I'm gonna go for a drive, but I really sure hope that the road is finished. So we'll see.
That makes a lot of sense. And actually, that works for me because I need to go. There's this guy that I work with named Bob, and I think he's starting to get a little full of himself. So I need to go bring him down a notch.
Yeah, that's probably wise. Anyway, after I go for a drive, I'm going to get on the subway, and I sure hope the line is finished on that too. So who knows?
Okay, well, great. Because that works for me because, a friend just texted me and said that I really should come out and check out this beautiful sunset that's happening inside an elevator.
Oh, interesting. I sure hope the plane I'm flying on doesn't get hit by a bus with a bomb on it for some reason.
You know what? It happens.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're going to do about it. I mean, honestly, I feel like I should go because I think a future part of this podcast is unfinished, and we should get out of here before we hit that part.
Yeah, or just jump it.
Or just jump it. Sure. Let me speed up.
Yeah. Anyway, I gotta run anyway. I'm giving a pop quiz later, so we'll see how that goes.
That makes sense. You're such a hotshot at those. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. That totally works for me because I need to go to a coffee shop where I know everyone super well and see them every day.
That's interesting. I just got a tip. I gotta go check out this house in the suburbs. I sure hope they don't rig it with a bomb again. So
you know what? I've got some good news and bad news.
Okay.
This is weird. I feel like I should go because I think I hear in the distance a payphone on the street by my house is ringing, and pretty sure it's the bad guy in my next adventure.
Okay. I feel like footnote, we didn't talk about the payphone enough.
Can we talk about it right now?
Yeah. That's such a trope from those times of someone calling a payphone and then someone answering it.
Yes.
That's so awesome.
A couple years ago, my dad just out of nowhere said, "You'll never guess what I saw today. Someone on a payphone."
I've got to go. I've got to make sure the building I'm going to has a crane on top just in case a madman has equipped the elevator with a bomb and I need to save the passengers. So,
that really works for me because you know what my feeling is something's wrong about that. He's going to blow it anyway. So you should go.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to a retirement party for someone from Atlanta. I sure hope he gets a gold watch at the end of this. So,
all right. Well, I guess then I'll see you soon.
Yeah. See you soon.